All our stories are created for entertainment purposes only.
My name is Dave, and I'm 55 years old. I own a garage, and what sets it apart is that I built it from the ground up. I began working at 18 under my uncle, and after saving for 7 years, I started my own garage. The early years were challenging, and I worked tirelessly to make it successful. Over the next 30 years, it grew into what it is today. Did I fall in love? Yes, with Jenny. I met her at an auto show while she was still in university. We instantly connected, exchanged numbers, and decided to meet again. Since we lived in different cities, our communication was limited to phone calls. Several months later, we reunited, and this time, our meeting ended at my place. It was a special moment because it was her first time. A few months later, Jenny faced financial challenges after losing her parents and jeopardizing her university fees. I knew she was the one for me, so I stepped in, using my savings to support her studies. She was deeply moved and hugged me, overwhelmed with gratitude. 5 years later, Jenny moved in with me and secured a job as a lawyer at a local law firm. On a beautiful Sunday, we went hiking and reached the hill's summit after 3 hours, enjoying a panoramic view of the city. Unexpectedly, Jenny got down on one knee and proposed to me. I was surprised, but happily accepted. She gave me a ring, signifying that we were now committed to each other forever. We got married 3 weeks later in an intimate ceremony. Over the next 20 years, our life was fulfilling. We welcomed 2 children, Maria, 19, and James, 18, both of whom are now independent, with Maria pursuing her university education and James serving as the lead guitarist in a local rock band. With our kids out of the house, I was content with my life. I had never pursued higher education and had been perceived as a tough guy, which didn't bother me. However, things began to change with Jenny. After 20 years of marriage, I knew her inside out, including her thoughts, behaviors, and even her deceptions. She started working late frequently at her new job, which she had taken up a year ago. The position came with more money and glamour, and her new boss, a famous lawyer known for high-profile court cases, was someone I didn't particularly like. I never expected our paths to cross. After observing Jenny for about 3 months, I confronted her about her late nights at the office. I'm typically a gentle soul, but this time was different. She had never seen this side of me. After about 20 minutes of intense questioning, she finally broke down and confessed. She confessed to having an affair with her new boss. I had a straightforward question. Why? I told her, "You married the same man I was 20 years ago. I haven't changed or upgraded. I wear modest clothes, have a rugged appearance, and may not fit society's standards. But I've always agreed to your desires, acted as a husband, and provided for our family. You want someone better? Someone you can proudly introduce as your equal. You're looking for a dominant alpha male." I gazed at her and inquired, "Are you leaving our 25-year-long marriage just because I don't fit into your social gatherings and don't dominate or mistreat you? Does that make me a bad husband? I put our 2 kids through college and supported your journey to becoming a lawyer. And now I'm not good enough?" She attempted to assert herself, saying, "You should understand and accept this situation. I'll be with my new lover and you should too. If you don't, I'll divorce you and take away everything you've ever worked for. I'll strip you of everything, trap you in legal battles, and make you spend your life in court and on the streets. I'll even take away your most prized possession, your garage, which you've built over the years. So prepare yourself." I leaned back in my chair and chuckled, telling her, "You think you can initiate a legal process and take everything away? Good luck with that." She attempted to speak, but I didn't let her and left the house. The next morning, I caught a glimpse of Jenny but left for work without uttering a single word. Once I was gone, Jenny reached out to her lover. She greeted John, noticing his upset demeanor, and shared that I had discovered their affair after confronting her that morning, leading her to confess everything. John acknowledged the complexity of the situation, but reminded her that it wasn't catastrophic, considering they had previously contemplated such a scenario. Jenny admitted knowing this, but expressed how difficult the reality was, highlighting our long history together, including our marriage and children. She queried John about his conversation with me, to which he admitted he had followed their predetermined narrative without denial, citing his poor lying skills. He explained to me that Jenny, being a successful career woman and lawyer, sought someone more dominant and equal to her stature. Contrasting with her life married to a mechanic, Jenny acknowledged John's summary, but requested they not disparage me too much, noting my achievements and contributions to our family. She reflected on our conversation, feeling her desires for someone like John seemed justified until she remembered the support I had provided over the years. John inquired if she had disclosed everything to me, including the potential implications of a divorce supported by her company. Jenny confirmed she had, but my indifference to those factors and disbelief at being discarded despite my loyalty pained her. She attempted to explain her feelings to me, but doubted I understood, expressing her fear of losing me. John reminded Jenny of her admiration for his physical attributes and the intimacy they shared, which she had allegedly not experienced with me. He promised to continue providing her with what she felt was missing in our marriage, asserting his position as the alpha male in her life. John planned to confront me with documents intended to intimidate and overwhelm, including orders to keep me away and freeze my company's bank accounts, using tactics meant to confuse. Jenny expressed uncertainty, haunted by my reaction that morning, indicating her conflicted feelings and the complex emotions involved in their affair and its impact on our marriage. In the afternoon around 2 p.m., the guy who thinks he's the top dog showed up at my garage. He mentioned Jenny probably told me they'd keep seeing each other and then hinted at why I'd have to be okay with it. He wanted to set down his briefcase and started bragging about owning the company where Jenny works, having access to a bunch of lawyers skilled in winning cases, especially in divorce law. He didn't mince words about using them against me. He laid out a bunch of papers he was ready to file that morning, including a divorce petition Jenny had signed, a document to freeze my company's accounts, an order giving me a day to leave our house, and 4 restraining orders to keep me away from him, Jenny, her place, and where they work. He made it clear he planned to tie me up in legal battles until I was broke and desperate. He acknowledged I was physically stronger but preached that brains beat brawn these days. He suggested we keep things as they've been, with him seeing Jenny and me getting time with her when she wants. He figured he'd get bored of her eventually, and she'd be back with me full time. He finished his spiel by saying if I had been everything Jenny needed, this mess wouldn't have happened. He advised me to take it as a chance to better myself and to assert myself more with Jenny. He claimed he got her attention by being decisive, not by being the nicest guy. He asked when I'd get what being an alpha male really means. I decided actions spoke louder than words. I stepped forward and punched him, causing quite a bit of damage. He ended up slumped against the wall, looking shocked on the part of his face that wasn't hurt. That was my first lesson to him. Before he could really process the pain, I picked him up only to knock down again, leaving it on the floor. That was lesson number 2. Then my boot came down on the hand, breaking some bones, then 3 ribs. I pointed out these were lessons 3 and 4, and asked him to keep it down because I was trying to teach him something. I mentioned how he made me break a promise to never use my size and strength for harm. I had intended to keep him out of Jenny's mess until he provoked me. Even a gentleman has his breaking point. I then put my foot on the throat to make sure he was paying attention, explaining the real meaning of alpha male comes from how wolves operate. I told him he might think he's the alpha in his office, but in the real world he didn't measure up. I called him out for not bringing a witness, calling it a foolish move. I laid out his options. He could report me and face all sorts of uncertain outcomes, or he could take this as a lesson about meddling in others' marriages. I told him to get lost because he made a mess in my workshop. So much for being an alpha, I thought. Jenny called John that evening, mentioning she was still at work and wondering where he was. John told her he had been admitted to the hospital after spending 3 hours in the ER because he underestimated me and decided to confront me alone, resulting in a broken nose, hand, some ribs, and possibly his cheekbone. Jenny couldn't believe it, saying I had never been violent as far as she knew. John insisted it was true and even offered to show her the x-rays. Jenny was shocked, finding it hard to believe that I could do such a thing. She wondered if there was a way to prevent John from going to the police, arguing that despite what happened, I didn't deserve to go to prison. John told her the police had already visited him, but he lied, saying he was hit by a hit-and-run driver because I had warned him of further suffering if he pressed charges. He decided to keep quiet to avoid further harm. The next day, Jenny visited John in the hospital, explaining her ordeal of driving around. not knowing if it was safe to go home, finding the locks changed, and discovering all our bank accounts emptied and credit cards unusable. She asked if John could help her by getting one of his divorce lawyers to start the process of getting me out of the house and if she could stay with him until then. John refused, saying it was too risky for him, and even fired her from her job, offering 4 weeks of severance if she left immediately, and conveyed to me that he had fired her. Jenny was desperate, pointing out that she was left with nothing, but John expressed his fear and insisted he was just trying to survive. He called her actions pathetic and criticized her for thinking she was trading up by being with him, calling her delusional for being serious about someone willing to cheat. On the same day, Jennifer sat in her silent car on the side of the road. Her credit cards were declined and she had run out of cash. I had not thought that canceling her phone service was being calculatedly cruel. She was driving towards the city where her 2 children now lived, seeking refuge. In all the years, they had never let more than an hour pass before responding to her messages. She had started calling them that morning after 10 a.m. Checking her messages again, she found none. Jenny sighed, grabbed her useless handbag, and stepped out of the car. Straightening her skirt, she walked to the side of the road and stuck out her thumb. I approached in a beat-up van and couldn't help but smile as I saw the lone woman on the side of the road. I wouldn't describe myself as an alpha male. Even I knew that loners could never be described that way. Apex predators hunt alone. I stopped the van near her, and she looked shocked. She seemed to consider running, but her body refused, and she stood there frozen. I climbed down and asked her to get in. "We need to talk," I said. She got in, and I told her to prepare the divorce papers. "No alimony, no share of my assets. Everything I own stays with me. Everything you own remains yours, including all the jewelry I bought for you, which you will return. You can state any reason you want for the divorce. I don't care as long as you're out of my life. After the divorce is finalized, you'll leave town and never look back. You may talk to my kids and meet them in my absence, but only if they want to meet you. Your belongings will be packed and ready for pickup from the house by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. You must come and pick them up. If they're not picked up by 11 a.m., they will be destroyed. Is that clear?" She nodded, and I inquired about when I could get the papers. She mentioned it would take a week, and I insisted it should be on my desk within the next 5 days. She nodded again. As I looked at her, she appeared as if she had seen a ghost. I smiled, asked her to leave, and then drove away. The next morning by 10:30 a.m., she had retrieved her belongings, and 5 days later she delivered the divorce papers, citing irreconcilable differences. I chuckled. A few months later, I was a free man. I regret that my marriage fell apart. I regret that Jenny couldn't grasp the concept of loyalty. I regret that she believed I couldn't change my appearance to become a more presentable husband. She failed to understand that she could have been seriously hurt if a 6'5" guy attempted to dominate her in bed. I would have tried to save my marriage, talked to my wife, but she chose to threaten me with consequences. That's a point of no return for me. I'll continue my life alone, and perhaps one day I'll pass alone. Story 2. A while back, I had a relationship with a girl that turned out to be pretty awful. She was overly controlling and offensive, and eventually things took a nosedive, leading to our breakup. I carried on with my life, and after a few years, I landed a decent job that covered my needs, allowed for a comfortable lifestyle, and enabled me to save some money. Then, a few months into my new job, my ex-girlfriend reached out to me. Initially, she requested a conversation, and I thought she might want to reconnect or discuss something important. To my surprise, she arrived with a 5-year-old child, claiming he was my son and insisting on child support. I was skeptical, but the child's age matched the period since we had last been in touch. I sought advice from a friend who was also a lawyer, and he suggested trying to resolve the matter without involving the court. I proposed taking responsibility, covering all expenses, and actively participating in the child's life, contingent on a DNA test. Everyone agreed to this plan except my ex-girlfriend, who reacted with indignation and demanded the money she believed she deserved. She employed various excuses and even contacted my family to accuse me of evading responsibility for her child. When she exhausted her excuses, we proceeded with the DNA test, and the results were shocking. It turns out I was not the father. She was furious about the outcome and complained about the money, asserting that it was unjust and that she deserved it. Nonetheless, her demands went unmet. Fast forward to last week when there was a small gathering at my parents' house. My brother, a friend, and I engaged in a conversation. My brother began to make lighthearted jokes about the situation with my ex, and my friend and I joined in, some of our remarks taking a somewhat dark and inappropriate turn. We believed we were far enough from the rest of the partygoers, safely hidden on the opposite side of the house, and that no one else could overhear us. Amidst our laughter, my sister suddenly stormed in, visibly angry, and pushed me against the wall. She had inadvertently overheard our conversation and was extremely upset. She scolded us vehemently for our insensitivity in making fun of a disadvantaged woman, expressing her strong disapproval of our behavior. A few hours later, after the party had ended, she asked me to join her and our parents in the kitchen. She began by expressing her displeasure about the previous situation. It turns out that my ex had been in touch with her, and she had taken my ex's side, seeing this as an opportunity for an intervention. My brother and I were quite surprised when she started to claim that I had forced my ex into single motherhood and that I had a moral obligation to assist her. My dad simply mentioned that perhaps we had been too harsh in making jokes about her, but he stressed that I wasn't responsible for the child. Unexpectedly, my mom chimed in saying, "Even if the child isn't yours, you earn more than enough to support them, and you should have helped her." Since then, I've been receiving texts. My dad and my brother are on my side, asserting that I'm not responsible for my ex's situation. However, my sister continues to berate me, accusing me of ruining their lives. My mom, though, simply said, "It's your decision, and I respect it. I'm just very disappointed that you've turned out to be so selfish. I recognize that my ex doesn't deserve my money, and I have no intention of giving her any. Yet, the constant harassment from my sister, trying to make me feel guilty, is truly draining." It's been a while since my last update. After my previous post, I went through all the comments and decided to share them with my mother. We had a conversation about the situation. Initially, she sided with my ex, but as she read the post along with all the comments and opinions, she came to realize her mistake. What seemed to hurt her the most were the doubts about whether my ex cheated on my dad and whether I was his biological son, which may have influenced her bias towards my ex. We had a lengthy discussion, during which she admitted that she had believed my ex because of the kindness she had shown her. She had chosen not to believe me when I recounted all the things my ex had done to me during our relationship because she couldn't imagine a seemingly good girl behaving in such a way. Afterward, she apologized to me, and we're on good terms now. As for my sister, she initially decided not to talk to me until I took responsibility. However, after a few days, I initiated a conversation with her. She remains firmly on my ex's side, even after I showed her all the evidence. She maintains that a woman's word takes precedence and is all the proof needed. She also insists that regardless of biological paternity, I have an emotional responsibility and should step up and act like a real man. It seems there's little hope of changing her stance. Regarding my ex, I did some research and discovered that shortly after our breakup, she began dating another guy. Or perhaps she was seeing him while we were still together. I'm not certain. Their relationship ended a few weeks later, and she went on multiple dates until she became pregnant. I also found out that she had been actively searching for a father for her child over the last 2 years, with me being the most recent candidate. It appears she's becoming increasingly desperate, as she had never been as aggressive with anyone else before. Now, the purpose of this post is to address the current situation. A few days ago, my ex-girlfriend and my sister showed up at my workplace with a large sign featuring my face. The sign accused me of abandoning my child and labeled me an irresponsible father. They created a scene, spouting false claims in an attempt to shame me and use social pressure to make me take responsibility for them. They explicitly stated this as their intention. To keep it brief, they were eventually escorted out of the premises. However, I faced consequences for the disturbance, despite presenting all the evidence and legal documents proving their lies. I was warned that such an incident must never happen again, or I could lose my job. Subsequently, I reached out to my lawyer friend, and we are currently drafting a comprehensive and detailed legal document against both my ex-girlfriend and my sister. They pushed things too far, and I am now pursuing legal action against them with full force. Perhaps this will be enough to make them back off and leave me alone. Update. First and foremost, I am restricted from discussing the lawsuit in detail. The most I can share is that my ex-girlfriend was extremely alarmed when she learned about it. She is now pleading to have it dropped, offering to retract all her statements, cease bothering me, and never contact me again. She even attempted to guilt-trip me by claiming that I would ruin her and her son's lives. However, I no longer care about being the good guy. She crossed a line with me, and now I'm fighting back. As for my sister, initially, the lawsuit made her behavior even worse. Since her attempt to shame me at my workplace didn't yield the results she desired, she took her campaign to social media, spreading false accusations about me abandoning my child or not taking responsibility. She also portrayed my legal actions as acts of censorship and misogyny. In the end, this will likely backfire on her, as I can easily refute her defamation claims, and her actions provide more evidence in our favor. Anyway, this journey is going to be long, and we've just started. Recently, we had a Christmas gathering at my parents' home. We use this occasion every year to have a big family party before Christmas. I had my reservations because I didn't want to be around my sister. However, after some relatives assured me that she wouldn't be present, I decided to attend. Big mistake. She was there. Mom felt that despite everything that had happened, I was taking things too far. She wanted us all to come together as a family to resolve this issue. As soon as I understood her intentions, I tried to leave, but some relatives prevented me while my mom cried and insisted that I needed to stop, claiming I was tearing the family apart and should learn to forgive and let go. I realized that despite everything, even when she knew I was telling the truth, she was still on my sister's side. I managed to get out of there, telling her that I wouldn't attend any family events if my sister was there and to never attempt this again. At this point, almost all my family members are aware of what my sister did. Some of them think my sister is irrational, while others believe she's crazy, but they also think I'm taking things too far. A couple of days ago, Mom invited me to spend Christmas with them. I was hesitant to go after what she had done, but I decided to give her a chance after she promised it wouldn't happen again. However, not only had she planned to repeat the same situation, but my brother also warned me that this time she intended to trap me until I forgave my sister and stopped the nonsense. I called my mom and informed her that I was aware of her plan and that I was done with both her and my sister. I told her not to contact me until she realized she had supported the wrong person and to apologize. Needless to say, she tried to call me numerous times in the following hours, creating a lot of drama when I didn't show up for Christmas. But once again, I'm tired of being the good guy. So, that's the current situation. I hope all of you had a pleasant Christmas, and I wish you a happy and drama-free New Year. Update. Many events have transpired, and significant changes have occurred. Regarding the lawsuit, in short, I emerged victorious. We never had to go to trial. Everything was resolved through conciliation meetings. My lawyer's strategy involved including a multitude of allegations, ranging from harassment and defamation to attempts to jeopardize my job and parental fraud. The aim was to intimidate them thoroughly, and if that failed, there would be numerous charges against my ex and my sister. My sister brushed it off as a bluff and continued to post her nonsense on social media. She now regrets it because every word she posted against me came back to haunt her when used as evidence. My ex retracted all her statements more easily, seeking my forgiveness upon realizing the extensive consequences she would face. She ultimately agreed to settle the damages out of court and left my sister to face the battle she initiated. When my sister grasped the magnitude of the situation and the fact that she was now alone with no chance of winning, she panicked. She deleted every post she had made, attempting to pretend she had never done what she did. Unfortunately for her, we had all the necessary backups, screenshots, and recordings. During the final conciliation meeting, she broke down in tears, pleading with me to forgive her and spare her from this ordeal. However, she had brought this upon herself. She had numerous opportunities to stop, but she persisted and now faces the consequences of her own recklessness. She had to pay me a significant amount, along with covering all the legal costs. My mother assisted her in making the payment, but now she carries a substantial debt as my dad demanded repayment over time. For a few months, she held resentment toward me for my actions. However, we eventually had a conversation and began to repair our relationship. It remains strained, but it's gradually healing. She confessed that initially she believed she was fighting for a just cause, defending a needy woman in her mind. She was convinced she was doing the right thing, influenced by her friends who encouraged her to fight on, face me, and ensure I fulfilled my obligations. She thought she was fighting for the sake of other women. These ideas were supported by her friends, who cheered her on and urged her to stand up to me. But when things became too real, and she realized there was no way she could win, all those friends disappeared. My ex abandoned her, and those who had offered their support wished her luck and distanced themselves. She had no choice but to surrender. So that's how things concluded with them. And for those who suspected, no, my sister and my ex were not in a romantic relationship. I have no idea where my ex is, and I couldn't care less. She paid her dues and disappeared, and I sincerely hope to never cross paths with her again. Some individuals have accused me of going too far with her, with some even labeling me as a monster for ruining a single mother who was already facing difficulties. Others have criticized me for not being loyal to my family by taking the issue this far instead of resolving it within the family. At this point, I've reached a point where I no longer care. My mother. Throughout the months that the conciliation process unfolded, my mom sided with my sister. On numerous occasions, she attempted to persuade me to stop, ranging from asking me to let it go to trying to guilt-trip me using every means possible. She even threatened to disown me, claiming she wouldn't consider me her son anymore or separate me from the family. However, in the end, she couldn't follow through with her threats and remains resentful. Throughout those months and even after everything concluded, I kept wondering why she acted this way, consistently favoring everyone else's side over mine. So, after receiving advice from multiple people to do so, I finally took the following step: the DNA test. After discussing it with my brother and dad, we all agreed that my mom's behavior was highly unusual. Due to everything she had said and implied, my dad grew increasingly suspicious, to the point where he was certain she had done something. After a heartfelt conversation, a few tears, and a promise that regardless of the test results, my dad would always be our father, we decided to proceed with the DNA test. It confirmed that both my brother and I are indeed his sons. My dad felt a profound sense of relief, but was subsequently overwhelmed by embarrassment for ever doubting his wife's loyalty. He was deeply ashamed of his suspicions, so we collectively decided to apologize to her for our actions. I initiated the conversation about the DNA test and asked to be the first to apologize to her. That night, we all gathered at my dad's house, sitting around the table. I began by acknowledging the fights and tension we had endured over the months and apologized for it. After all, she is my mother, but her behavior had left us all perplexed and full of doubts about her actions. So I suggested that we all undergo a DNA test. The moment I mentioned it, my mom erupted in anger. Within a split second, her face turned red, and she launched herself at me, grabbing my hair, scratching and hitting me while screaming phrases like, "Why did you do this?" and "I hate you." My father and brother had to pull her away from me, and she immediately began pleading for forgiveness from my dad. My dad was taken aback, and when he informed her that I was about to apologize to her because the results indicated we were his sons, her face displayed a mix of fear and desperation. Her reaction revealed everything. I had never seen my dad so furious. She admitted that she had an affair a long time ago, which lasted until she became pregnant with me. She was uncertain whether I was my dad's child or her lover's because they rarely used protection, and she allowed him to ejaculate inside her multiple times. All these years, she carried the doubt of who my real father was and intended to keep this secret forever. However, she exposed herself now, and suddenly everything became clear. This was why she had always treated me poorly, always prioritizing everyone else's opinions over mine. Dad threw her out that night, and in no time the whole family was aware of the situation. We informed them in case she tried to spread any falsehoods, which she detested. She even scolded us, stating that we had no right to say anything against her because she is our mother. The aftermath. To conclude this chaos, I received a substantial sum of money. My brother remains my best friend. My relationship with my sister is strained but on the mend, and she distanced herself from her toxic and misandric friends. My ex is out of the picture, hopefully for good this time. Dad is hurt, and Mom's infidelity came to light, but they are not getting a divorce. She has returned to my dad's home, but he hasn't forgiven her, and from what he has said, he never will. However, he doesn't want to go through a divorce or give her anything he has worked for. In his words, they are married but not a couple, and she is now trying to earn my dad's forgiveness. Of course, my mom openly despises me now, blaming me for all her problems. In her words, if you had done what I said and taken responsibility for the child, none of this would have happened. I hope you're happy now. And that's the story. I apologize for the lengthy narrative. I hope you all had a good 2023 and wish you a wonderful 2024. I will continue working, saving, and striving to build a life free from this madness. I'll probably cut ties with my mom, but at this point I couldn't care less. Edit. I've been seeing a psychologist once a month since I learned about my mom's affair. It has been quite helpful. For those concerned, I won't develop a hatred for women from this experience. I'm aware that not all women are like this, and I know there are plenty of wonderful and amazing ones out there. Nevertheless, it's difficult for me to trust anyone now, not just women. Regarding my dad, my brother and I have tried to persuade him multiple times to consider a divorce, but he has made his decision, and there's no way to change his mind. My relationship with my mother is in its worst state ever, and I consider it irreparable. After discovering the truth and undergoing therapy, many things have started to make sense, such as how she consistently favored everyone else over me throughout my life. Knowing that she always resented me and that all the efforts I made during my childhood were in vain is painful. I have no intention of maintaining a relationship with her,